Hello and welcome to BOOTHCAST. On BOOTHCAST, I speak to people who inspire me about sport, business, and the winning mindset. This BOOTHCAST is brought to you by Booth Training, and today's guest is a five-time Molokai to Oahu Paddleboard Champion. He's won the Nutri-Grain Ironman Series. He's recently been crowned the Shore & Partners Summer Surf Champion. He's a Australian board title champion. He's got a paddling resume that I'm sure that most people would envy. But Matt Bevilacqua, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Boothie, yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. So, Nate, first off, congratulations on the Summer of Surf. How was that?
Yeah, it was unreal. We're just, Ironman board paddle, all our clubby stuff is just in a great space at the moment. To have the Nutri-Grain Ironman Series as well as just an awesome Summer of Surf series that, expanded across the whole season. It's just, we had a lot of racing. I'm sitting here pretty tired. It's my first weekend off. I'm looking forward to this weekend, but yeah, just a fantastic event and just huge crowd, massive infrastructure on the beach, and just, yeah, it was unreal.
Yeah, it seems like that event's been going strength to strength, but we'll come back to that. But first off, I'd like to start off with a little bit about your background and where you're from and what you've done. So you're from, I believe, Clifton Beach in Tasmania. You're a Tassie boy by trade, I guess, and you grew up there until you were about 19, I think, when you moved up to the Sunshine Coast. But can you talk about growing up in Clifton Beach and how you became so acquainted with the ocean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so growing up in Hobart in Tasmania, everyone's, it's not really a city that's on the beach, but everyone's very like coastally orientated and, you go up diving, you go up kayaking and just having fun on the beach. And I think that's what I did. I really enjoyed going down to the surf club and, just having a good time. I wasn't exactly great at racing. I wasn't a naturally talented kid or anything like that. Just really enjoyed being out there. We have a lot of prevailing southerly winds down there and just a bit of swell wraps into those bays and we get a lot of swell. So yeah, just loved it. And, played footy and all those other things growing up, but I just had a love for the ocean and just really gravitated towards enjoying. I wasn't great at it, but just enjoying clubbies and enjoying racing on the beach.
And you started that from like, I think it was under sixes, I think I started in. Were you straight into it growing up? Or was like your parents pushing you into it? Or was it something about like learning the skills, being comfortable with the ocean? Was that how you were drawn into it? Or you saw one of your mates was doing it? How did you get involved in the first place?
Yeah, so it was just a trying thing. I think my parents were great. Like many, they throw you into everything and see what you enjoy, which, great plan, and it works. So I just actually really enjoyed the surf lifesaving. So kept going back down to Nippers every Sunday. And I can still remember, like you probably can, you start, so early that you're like, I want to race. And I remember not being able to race when I was 6 or 7. You can't quite do it yet. And I went down a competition and said, oh, you can't race. It's not your birthday yet or whatever. And I was like, what? So, I always remember that. So, yeah, straight into it, under sevens or something like that. And, yeah, never stopped. It's a really nice progression for surf lifesaving where you just, you start with your Sunday nippers and then you do a couple of sessions through the week and then you throw in your pool swimming and just gradually increase to a professional Ironman week, which is pretty heavy.
Yeah, it just gradually progresses. So, so you mentioned Aussie rules. I assume that you meant by football down in Tasmania. So did you play other sports except for Aussie rules and surf life saving? Did you try and progress through Aussie rules as well?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a really sporty AFL family. They love it, and it was a really, I really did want to play at AFL, and I was pretty good at athletics. I was okay swimming, definitely not great. Like I remember just getting an IM spot in my school relays kind of thing. And maybe the freestyle. So it wasn't even that good in the pool. Cross country, did all that kind of jazz, water polo. But yeah, really enjoyed the AFL. And it came to a point where in under 15s, I got like the best and fairest and actually beat a guy called Huey Greenwood, who's making waves in the AFL at the moment.
Good day to drop.
So, it was a pretty good achievement. I was, 15, being the best, like we made the grand final that year or whatever. And Dad just said, you've got to make a decision. You're turning 16 now. I think the timing was obviously hard, time management, balancing both, doing clubbies as well. And so I think it's probably a little bit early maybe to make a choice like that, but I did say I'm not going to go back. So I didn't go back to AFL that year and just focused on clubbies. And down there, you kind of do a lot of ski paddling through the winter. So I wanted to focus on that. And yeah, so even back then, I think I had a massive love for the beach, and I remember making the decision based on what I enjoyed the most, not what I was best at. Because even back then, I wasn't winning races. There was a couple of guys like I think you're a year above me, but there was a guy called Richard Geard who actually used to make the finals at Aussies. He was a weapon, so he used to win all my underage. So I wasn't even the best in that, but I remember making the decision based fully on I actually really enjoy being on the beach, enjoying the stuff down there rather than being on the footy field in howling winds and stuff. So yeah, I mean the weather's the same. It's horrible, but yeah, still better on the beach for me.
And so you made the decision, obviously, to move away from Aussie rules, focus solely on surf lifesaving. So that was your main focus. Like, were you in school? You're academic? Did you finish school off? Did you get your, I don't know, when I went through, it was called the HSC. Did you like study afterwards? Like, what was your balance like as you were going through as a nipper and I guess a young teen?
Yeah, good question. So this is where you come into it. So when made that decision at like kind of year 10 to focus on clubbies, I really was studious. Like I was really academic. I was really like enjoyed school. Like I studied pretty hard, and I actually wanted to get into medicine. So I went to year 11 and 12, did all the subjects I needed to, and studied hard. But year 11 is a little bit less serious. So I managed to go out and do the under 19 gold that year. Really like kind of forced issues studying wise, but got over there, and that's the one you went off with Tibbets, I think.
Yeah.
And you guys had the tussle. Yeah. So I ended up getting sixth in that race, which was massive for me. And yeah, it was, really one of the biggest achievements I'd had because I beat that Richard Geard guy. I was kind of the best result in Tassie. And we had a solid field that year, I think. And the next year, I didn't go back. I did year 12 and just focused solely on that to get my entry into med. Got a really good score, got 96, which is like an OP 2 or 3, and got an HR 96, and then stuffed up my med entry exam in year 12. So I had to do the med entry exam the next year, and I thought, well, I'll go away to the sunny coast to the Michael King Ironman Academy, probably get to that in a minute, and I'll do my med entry test up there and come back to Hobart, do my doctor's thing. But lived a little, trained with the Ironman, got a taste for what it could be. In the end, never went back. So I just loved, the sport. Like I said, when I was 15, the same thing hadn't changed 4 years later. Really had an enjoyment for what I did and thought, you know what? I smashed the UMAT test. I got into med for the next year, but said no, never went back and studied education instead and started on this different path.
And that's a pretty critical moment in your life, making that decision. What was like the most heavily weighting factor when you made that decision? Because you see a lot of people go into, I guess, work and different things and study, and then they come back maybe when they're our age now and 30, and they're thinking, oh, maybe I should have made a different decision. But you've gone down the path of not medicine, and medicine is obviously a fantastic career, but you've gone down the path of something that you really enjoy doing. And I think there's so much value in that. And it's something that I think if any kids are out there listening to, it's something that you've got to, I guess, go with your gut in that circumstance, and something that I've done as well. But how did you make that decision, and why do you think you made that decision? Like, what were it's always a hard one to ask, but why do you think you made that decision?
Yeah, you have so many big turning point choices in your life. Well, actually, it probably comes down to a couple of key moments, but yeah, you really need to look back on the motivations for those decisions. And for me, like with you, we chose a lifestyle choices that we enjoyed and loved, which probably I'd suggest to everyone to do. Sometimes it can be more complicated than that, but I try to say my advice is, just remember your motivations for doing it, so that when you do come to review the decision a few years later, you haven't made it because your mate did it, or, really understand those motivations are, true to yourself and things like that. And hopefully it's because you love the choice and you're going to go with that. But yeah, whatever it is, just make sure you can look back on it with no regrets, because like we're doing now, I suppose you look back at, 10 years ago when you're making those decisions at 19, 20, you just want to make sure you did it for the right reasons. And yeah, like I said, easy because that's my reason. I enjoyed it. I wasn't the best at it still, even when I was ditching medicine. I was still a 19-year-old Tassie kid living with Paulie and stuff. I still wasn't achieving anything, but I knew that I could enjoy a career in teaching that I kind of knew I'd like as well. But also, it's a great lifestyle. I enjoyed doing what I was doing, whether I was professional or whether I stayed recreational and had fun with it. So, yeah, it's they're hard choices, but I'm glad I understand my motivations for it. Because even now, so say I was looking at the AFL decision. Sometimes I look at a few AFL players and go, oh, I could have played. Like, I got bigger, you know, I'm a bit faster now. Things like that. I'm like, shit. But I know I made the choice for me. And I think the only reason I'm a successful athlete is because I managed to choose a career that was, you know, I enjoyed rather than I was good at. So even say if I was good at AFL and I could have made it, I don't think I enjoyed it as much as what I do now. So I wouldn't have got to the same level. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that enjoyment and sort of balancing out your life and going, well, when I wake up every day, am I going to want to do this? And do I have a purpose in doing it? And you obviously absolutely love what you do. So it's fantastic to hear. So I guess coming through, I just go a little back a little bit. You obviously got your brother Joel. Did you have any other siblings? And like, you're obviously a very competitive guy. I remember racing you one time. I think it was Chugan, maybe when you were first 18, I was 19, maybe you came up to the Gold Coast and you walked down a certain way to the line and we raced. It was like a nothing race at Chugan. But I just remember thinking, yeah, geez, this guy's a competitive little fella. And I didn't know. It must have been that same year we raced the gold. And I think we had a little bit of words and it was funny. And then we became good mates like for like 10 years when we were living on the Gold Coast. But was it always a competitive environment in your family growing up, or was it always just about having fun?
Yeah, great judge of character, and you probably saw a lot of yourself in me, I reckon. So
I tend to have words with somebody and then become their best mate. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah. So I was the same as you and Dan. You know, like me and Joel was so competitive, like it was full on. And I think it wasn't just competitive with my brother. I was competitive with everything. You know, just crazy. Couldn't play board games sometimes, you know, I had to put myself away from things and just stuff like that. So I definitely had a natural competitive streak, which has helped me from coming from Tassie where 19, 20, 21, I was kind of really behind the eight ball and I had to really kind of believe in myself and compete every single session to make sure I was improving at a rate to break into the series eventually. So, which did happen, but I was very late, you know, and I suppose someone who's, you know, not so competitive or, you know, had natural talent growing up may have probably faded away during those points, but I just took it as the ultimate challenge, you know, to try and beat everyone in every heat or whatever. And I remember racing Huey Doherty. I was always beside Huey Doherty throughout those years as well. And, you know, he was smashing the heats to go through and win the final or whatever, but I was always on his wash and he was the same. I think he noticed. He's like, who the shit's this little pasty Tassie kid that keeps hammering on my elbows, you know? So, very competitive like yourself and probably grew up, you know, was made so from growing up with Joel, just 2 years younger.
Yeah, it's always good to grow up in that competitive environment. Like we had obviously Daniel and Stephen, and we were always just racing, and everything was a race. I remember the first time Daniel beat me in like a 200-meter freestyle at swimming training, just broke me. It was like when I was like 16, I was just, oh my god, it's happening. But I kept continuing and kept pushing. But that's just something that's really important. I think just consistently knowing what your goal is, because obviously once you quit nursing, you knew what your goal was. You wanted to be, I guess, the best Ironman that you could be, whether it was the best Ironman ever, whatever it might have been. But you constantly were just working towards that, because we'll talk a little bit about moving up to Mooloolaba now. So you've come out of school. You've obviously talked about your med placement exam or whatever. You didn't get in that, and you went up to Mooloolaba and obviously trained with probably one of the best ever Ironman squads that ever in one time. Like you look at the squad, it was like yourself, like Josh Minogue, Matt Poole, Kendrick Louis at some points, like so many people who've actually Ali Day. Sorry, Ali. So you missed, like you've got like, I don't know, the 5 or 6 champions for the last 10 years in one squad, and you've all obviously gone your different ways after that. But what was that like going up there? Like, was it daunting as a young kid from Tasmania to start with? And then obviously you're moving with Matt, and Matt's obviously a guy who's quite a character, already winning races in the series and that type of thing. What was it like as a young kid from Tassie moving into that environment?
Yeah, it was full on. And at the time, we definitely had no idea what we were kind of in. I think it all come across and everyone's, you know, talking about the Mocking Ironman Academy, but I always thought, you know, Northcliffe would have a similar squad, you know, Burley'd have a squad. You know, I didn't really understand coming from Tassie. So I loved it. Obviously, I was skipping off careers like that to stay here and train with these guys and be amongst it. But definitely didn't appreciate it fully. It was full on, you know, Kingy's program back then was famous for being insanely hard, 3 sessions a day, you know, like in the heat that I had never felt before. I'd say I've got a keynote speech and I say that the two of the hardest years of my life when I left at 19, so 19 to about 21, just managing work, $30 in my bank account for 2 years, but working, just enough to feed myself and not skip sessions, not work too much. Just sleep through the day for about 3 hours every day, just so I couldn't keep up. And that was just my routine. So I'd swim, sleep for 3 hours, do the midday session, then Arvo session, then I'd work nights on the weekends at Bullbar Surf Club. So it was full on, Pooley, Josh Minogue, Ali, Cuffy, Kendrick. We had like half the Ironman series at one point, and the best coach there was. And he was like a father figure to us because we had no parents up there. We were all orphans, it was fantastic. It was, something like what you had at Northcliffe, but yeah, just a really elite program where we just weren't drinking beers. We just didn't do anything for years. We'd have an off season briefly for a couple of weeks, but so lucky to sit there in a house with Pooley and Josh. Pooley had just signed with Red Bull, was doing Molokai, winning series, sponsored by Body Science, having all the supplements, marketing himself. And I just watched it all from his bedroom side, and just soaked it all in. So I was really lucky to have done that and had that opportunity as well, not just the squad, but to live with Pooley and Josh and learn what proper discipline is and hard training. So lessons learned for life.
So what is proper discipline and hard training?
Yeah, so it's just living and breathing it, Josh used to be this so obsessed guy. He'd have quotes in his room, wallpapers on his phone. He'd write down notes and just, all the physical stuff. Obviously, training, you're killing yourself day in, day out. Every session is just hard, and there wasn't a lot of science to it. It was hard, it was probably a bit too conditioning based, but it was what I saw aside from that, and it was all about living and breathing it and dying by, your goals kind of thing. That's what I learned from Josh, and Paulie was a lot about the marketing stuff. There's just so many moving aspects to, training hard and discipline, in sport. So I think it's those extra things that, I learned.
And what was your goal when you moved up to Molokai, as a 19-year-old kid from Tassie? I made up a goal for you just a second ago, but
that was a good one.
What was your goal?
To be the best Ironman I could be, and it was so important to not put a ceiling on that and not say I want to win Aussies or I want to win the Nutri-Grain Ironman Series or want to be in the series, because that would have always put a ceiling on it and, obviously limited my ability. And saying you can be the best Ironman, especially as a Tasmanian who never had achieved anything and didn't know if he could actually make the Ironman series, that definitely wasn't a goal because it was too big. And looking back on it now, that's so small, it would have been silly. So, I think it was like that. It was because that achievement of most goals being too high, I actually did probably just go, right, I want to be better. Next swimming in the morning, I want to be a bit better. Next in that board session that afternoon, I want to be a little bit better again. So every single opportunity or mistake I did at training, Kingy would always force it and say, don't ever do it again. Learn from that moment. You don't have opportunities to learn from these things twice. So it truly was. It was be the best Ironman you can be. And there were stepping stones along the way and little goals that I set, but I think it was always just let's just see how good I can be. And I look back at videos that I did for shifties, things like that. I actually just say, I just want to see, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? And it was never limited, which was good.
Okay, well, we'll go back to your story a little bit in a second, but I like what we're talking about with goals a little bit here. How does Matt Bevilacqua set up his, I guess, your short-term, your medium-term, your long-term goals? I know, obviously, your ultimate goal is to be the best Ironman you can be, but you have to have specific goals along the way, because you're not just going to go, I want to be the best I can today. You want to go, I want to win this race. But as long as I always say to myself, as long as I finish the race knowing I couldn't have done any more, then I've achieved my goal. That was always my thing. And I've always said that to myself. I was like, if you finish the race and you know you could have done more, then why did you even start the race?
It's a horrible feeling.
It does my head in. So now I always just do my best, and whatever the circumstance is given, I always just try and do my best. What were your short, medium, long-term goals at your age, at 19 when you first moved up?
Yeah, I definitely didn't look too far ahead. And I think it was, a bit of what you said about, making sure you put your foot on the line for that event, knowing you've done everything as well. So I used to hate going to an event. So I'd obviously through the season break up you normally have, a few events through the season, and I'd want to just get to that race and know that I've done everything possible to put my best self on that line. So that meant nailing every session week to week to week and get to that point, and then obviously do the best race you possibly can, which is another ball game, But it was based on that. It was every single session, just make sure you're walking away from it knowing you learned from every moment and you did everything. Like, you might have stuffed up heaps, but you did your best to learn from each moment of mistake. And if it was perfect, sick, then make sure the next session's perfect until you get to race day. So that's what it was. And Kingy really drove that home. He was a great coach that made sure you were never missing sessions. Even if you came, you do your best, it's fine, as long as you committed your best each time to put together a package that can give you your best on the race day. Obviously race day is hard. Like it's there's so many decision-making things and stuff like that. But in terms of effort, it's not hard to put in your best effort. But always tried to make sure I did the perfect race at the time as well.
And how did you deal with those mistakes that you would have made as a young fella? Like, I know I made a lot of them. I'm sure you made a lot too. And you like look back at them, you're like, okay, well, I'm so glad I made that mistake. But at the time, how did you deal with those little mistakes?
Yeah.
Well, even now,
they were awesome. Yeah, like even now, they're awesome, and I've got to learn from them. Like there was round 5 at Nutri-Grain on the weekend, 2 weekends ago. I was in the box seat. All I had to hold was a shorey, and just slewed my ski, and it was done. And I thought, you know what, I had been slewing my ski a bit more lately, too much. And like I hadn't tightened my rudder. I hadn't looked at it in ages since I got the ski a year ago. Looked at it the week of Shore and Partners last weekend, super loose, crazy loose, tightened it up, went out in there and raced, and it felt like a different ski. Yeah. There's physical things there, but there's also the little things. Like you need to check your gear. I'd forgotten that, like used to do it all the time, but you forget, so it's just little things like that. They come back to bite you, and there's still mistakes that I can learn from to maybe have that perfect season next year. And you don't just all of a sudden have perfect seasons. You've got to learn from a lot of mistakes and make sure they're all like culminated, really refreshed for a perfect season to happen. You know what I mean? So if it meant I had to learn from that in the weekend to make sure I am a better Ironman next year, then fine. It's a weird, it's a hard mindset to drill home, but those mistakes are awesome. Like it's happened. It's in the past. You shouldn't have done it, but great opportunity to learn, and you won't forget it again, especially those horrible moments.
I think the mistakes are the ones that you really appreciate, say 24 days down the track, but for that first 24 hours, you're kicking yourself. But that's just part of the learning process.
Exactly.
Because that would have been a hard one for you to take. I guess that Nutri-Grain, you were kind of, if you won that race, you were kind of really putting a lot of pressure on Ali for that overall series. I know you won back in 2017, 2018, but this Ali was sort of having that dream run 4 in a row, or 10 in a row technically for the year season before, and then you could have got one up on them, and then depending on what happened on the Sunday, but didn't actually happen for you on the Sunday either, which I'm sure that would have hurt as well. So so dealing with those type of moments, how does Matt Bevilacqua deal with them? Because you do that and you come back the next weekend and you get second and you win the overall summer surf. How do you sort of switch from making a mistake and something that really breaks you because you've really worked hard to get to that point, and then just switch it off and then just move on to the next thing? How do you do that?
Yeah, it was tough. And like you said, it was probably one of the most disappointed I've been in a race before. I've always managed to clinch really pressure moments like that series back then. The gold was a sprint finish. Shore and Partners one that I won a couple of years ago was a sprint finish. I've always come across them the best, and if I'd come second, I would have been filthy, But so it was the first moment that I'd really not come through in the clinch and done really horribly, like it was bad. And I couldn't sleep, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was really disappointed, kind of probably threw away a series possibly. Was upset. But I think what I focus on the most is the tiny little steps back. So if you're really happy, normally you can just go, I'll enjoy this week, knock out a few sessions. But when you're sad, you need to focus on, right, I'm going to set my alarm for 5:45 in the morning. I'm going to have a coffee. I'm going to have yoga. I'm going to go to swimming. And I'm going to nail all the tiniest little things that keep you preoccupied to make sure you get through that next session learn, just get the ball rolling again kind of thing. So I think Kingy that was his number one lesson, was focus on the process, not the result. So yeah, if you've had a bad result, or you're in a bad result during a race, you focus, but go back to processes, focus on even tinier steps, forget the big picture, just narrow it in a bit. So yeah, processes.
Yeah, I think you defined this, or one of the sayings that I really like. It's failures are the stepping stones to your next victories. And that's just, I think you find that if you fail in something and you look back at it, I always finish a race and I'll break down what I did wrong, and I'll give myself 12 hours. And after that 12 hours, I get over it and I get on with it. But yeah, I think that's really part of the process. And it's something obviously Kingy taught you, and I'm not sure he taught me, but I just learned along the way. But that's something that I think as a young athlete, I would have never been able to do that. I was a basket case. Like, I finished a race and I just think poor me. And now I'm like, okay, well, it's all your fault. How do you fix it? It's no one else's fault. You've made that mistake. So I think that's
and it gets harder, like when you get older, you've learned a whole lot along the way, but you forget some of the earlier things. If you start, getting a bit lazy and not focusing on the smaller steps anymore, your success will plateau. Like if you stay in that growth mindset and really focus on those little steps, like, I look at professional, like Ali Day's a good example, he just nails the little stuff. He's obsessed with doing everything right. And if you want to stay a champion or get to that level, it's what you've got to do, So, yeah, you can't ever forget that. Like even the smallest of failures, like, you look at, say, Shannon, he was just never losing races. I'm sure he was still probably winning races going, I just learned so much from that. I kind of went left on my ski a tiny bit for a second. Can't do that again. You know what I mean? Like it's no ceiling for it.
Yeah, and I saw that one of your favorite quotes, I think, was indirectly from Shannon, was always to work on your weaknesses, because that's where champions are born, or something along those lines. Now, how does that resonate with you now, sort of, and I guess in a double thing, what's it like racing someone like Shannon Eckstein or Ali Day, who are so particular with everything that they do? Like, I don't think I saw Ali finish the Nutri-Grain Ironman Series 1, and then went and had chocolate. Like, he doesn't normally have chocolate. Like, I was just
I saw that.
It's just, but some people are just so tuned in with what they're doing that, like, it's impossible for them to break that mold, and it's so hard to get to that level to beat them. And I don't think you're exactly that type of character. Like, you sort of have a bit more of a balance with your training and your racing and your work life, and you sort of, whereas I feel like someone like Ali is very, very focused. He's detailed, he's prepared, he's got his like rituals that he needs to do every time he races. What's it like racing people like that?
Yeah, and everyone's different. You have to do you. I mean, Pooley's one of the best Ironmen ever, like in big stuff out there. He's, he would have been hard to beat at the peak of his powers by anyone, and he wasn't definitely far from, the perfectionist that had to do everything right. He still was the ultimate racer, and he just knew how to train and put together weeks, but definitely wasn't not having chocolate for months on end, So yeah, you got to do you, and mine's not. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to compete like that. I don't think I get the most out of myself when I do it. I have to do a lot of things right, and like going back to what Shannon said with weaknesses, I've never been able to miss a swim session ever. For like 20 years, I haven't been able to miss anything. So that's one thing I've just always focused on, is just getting to the pool 4 or 5 sessions a week, never anything less than that, and just all weeks of the year basically. I think I've 5 weeks off when I'm doing Molokai, if that. So just worked on those weaknesses, and like learnt what's good for me. On race day, I'm not, I'm going out for breakfast, I like talking to people, I like relaxing, I like bouncing ideas off people, and when we're looking at big waves and tuning in like that. And it's just all about accessing that energy that you like. So it's a tricky thing, and it takes a while to get.
And how long did it take for you to understand your best approach to racing?
Yeah, it still is. I still haven't learnt that fully. It's like I don't know how you travel around the world and do what you do with your routine and getting that energy right going into a race that you've just probably jet lagged or just landed the day before. But when I'm here and I raced out of the Gold Coast for 4 days, I just had the whole day down pat. I like a routine. And just, nailing everything by the minute. Go, wake up, have my little coffee, go for a swim, come back, stretch, roll out. I'd go and get the coffee an hour later than that, and that'd be my coffees for the day. And I wouldn't be flat or anything for the race and things like that. in Bondi is the same. So it was good to be able to back up days like that and get my routine right, but it's still hard, like you're trying to figure out, what's good for you. What kind of warm up do I do? Do I really spike it up, or do I spend more time out there? What time do I go for my warm up? All those things, you get a good feel of, but it takes a few years and still getting it right. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, for me, I find that I learned pretty early on when I started traveling, it was just always just do your best performance based on your circumstances. And I think that's what I always did when I got in that start line. I didn't think about anything else. I didn't think about, oh, I'm jet lag. I remember one race I flew from, race in New York on Saturday. Went to the airport, flew to Germany, then drove up to the north, raced on the Sunday. And I had a schnitzel. I was jet lagged. I had like 4 hours sleep on the plane. I just I still won the race, but then I was vomiting afterwards. I felt really bad afterwards, but I was like, just stay in the moment. I think that was the biggest thing that I always tried to do, and just try and focus on, well, you can't really affect what your preparation was like. All you can affect right now is what you're going to do going forward. And that's what I always focused on. And I try and still do that to this day.
Yeah, and your training comes into effect. Like your body can really get through whatever you've given to it to get to the start line. It can really get through what you've trained it to do if you forget about the situation, because you got no control over it. I remember reading Rafael Nadal's book. Have you read that one?
I haven't, but I'll add it to my list now.
Yeah, so he talks through his third attempt at Wimbledon. Obviously, he loses the first two, and the first set he talks about. The first part of the book, he talks about the first set of his Wimbledon win the third time. Then he breaks in the sets throughout, and he doesn't sleep the day before. He didn't sleep the night before. He was so nervous. He goes, if I lose this third one to the same guy, Federer, and it was just really cool how he talked about his headspace, and he's a fighter. He's the ultimate. Forget about your circumstances, win and do whatever you can at the time, no matter what the score is, to fight for every point. It's really cool like that. So yeah, I remember always thinking, I had a shit sleep last night. I feel a bit tight, race morning. I'm like, yeah, no, Nadal had 2 hours. He felt like shit. He'd done his knee. He was, fighting the best in the world at Wimbledon, and he came through the goods. So. Yeah.
He did it, and he did it again at the Australian Open. Lost the first two sets, and then came back
won 30
in 5
years later or some shit to win 21. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, unbelievable. Let's go back to when you're first trying out for the Nutri-Grain series. So that would obviously been your goal when you're up there at the Molokai Ironman Academy. You got all these other guys who were there. I always remember it was so cutthroat. Like, I never made it. I tried a few times and was just not good enough. I was always close, but then I went down a different path. But you were one of the guys who made it, and you were one of that big group of guys who were making it from Mooloolaba. How much, I think there's a couple of actually questions that came through on Instagram, and they want to know how you dealt with not making the series, if you didn't make the series straight away in your first try, or if you didn't make it in one of the years. I think 1 year you got disqualified or something like that. But how did you deal with trying to turn up and just race for one weekend or one race and there's 6 spots? Like, how intense was that as a young guy, and how did you deal with that pressure?
Yeah, it's crazy pressure, and it still is. It's probably the most pressure-fueled event we have in our calendar, because your whole summer's on the line. If you don't make it, you just got to watch the whole summer. It was really lucky that when I did get DQ that year, it was a horrible DQ, and I applied for a wild card, playing the Tassie card, because I probably would have qualified. I'd done pretty well the first 2 races, but yeah, it got bounced back. I was really upset. But luckily, the summer of surf was in its beginning stages. Got to go race around a little bit, so still got to develop those skills. And looking back on it, maybe it was a good thing, not going out and getting flogged in that first year. And the next year, I kind of had a great year and re-qualified straight away. So I don't know, but I'm looking at young kids like there's an Odin Parrish this year. He's got into the series through the next gen. He's probably not ready for it, but he's going to give it his all, and he'll get the race experience. So yeah, if people sneak in, it's a tough year, but I don't know if it's good or bad. But yeah, so incredibly pressure filled. I was obviously trying to be the first Tasmanian to make it, and the day that I did qualify the next year was definitely the happiest I've ever been in the sport. So the result that I remember being just like, this is, it doesn't get better than this, I don't care if I go ahead and, do whatever after this. When I made it, I was front page of the Tassie paper, and we got a Facebook page going, and people were just loving it. People love a upstart story and you know, an underdog kind of thing. And that's what I was kind of representing back then. Not the same anymore, but yeah, just the most incredible moment I'll ever have in my career.
When you made what how old were you when you first made the series?
21. So yeah, must have been almost 22, right? So I'm in March. So yeah, back end of 21, almost 2.5 years of, you know, just really hard work since I left Tassie.
And then what were you focusing on? Because that would have been like, that was kind of everyone's goal, especially when I was going through. You just wanted to make the series. That was like the thing. You had the gold, you had the series, and you had obviously the races around it. Summer surf was very small at that stage. Like we were linking up different events. I remember driving down to, I think it was the Central Coast, and we went down to Victoria and did all these different races, and it was quite fun, but it definitely wasn't that, I guess, kind of like elitist level that the Nutri-Grain became in our sport. How did you deal with, like, obviously trying out and missing out, trying out, missing out, and then seeing all these other guys getting through? Like, obviously when you got through it was amazing, but how are you dealing with that year in, year out, and just trying to go, okay, well, I didn't make it this year. I'm going to go back. I'm going to train harder. I'm going to do this better. I'm going to do, like, well, how are you dealing with it personally?
Yeah, I think I was really lucky to have that coach that was, you know, just incredible. And they're the best coaches. They focus on that mental mindset and they really look after your motivations internally rather than the physical. So yeah, straight away, I remember, you know, just getting knocked and going, we got this event, we're going to this event, you know, we're going to keep racing, we're going to keep improving, and we're going to make it all worth it kind of thing. And that's what it's about. You know, it's resetting, setting that new goal and getting obsessed with it. You know, whether it's a smaller race, doesn't matter. There's just no time limit. There's no need to rush. You know, like you've always got opportunities to go back and beat those guys. So watch them if you want. Enjoy watching them because, you know, you've got an opportunity to beat them eventually, and just enjoy the ride kind of thing. So always stay positive that way. And like you said, we were still running around racing. And if you're loving what you're doing, it doesn't matter what level you're at. So I really did enjoy, you know, going to those races, you know, running around in Victoria, going to the wrong cans at Torquay, you know, like they were,
that's right.
They were learning moments, mate. So yeah, and I still did it even the first year of the series. The same mindset was there. It's like, let's go race. So I did the Ironman series, and I also did the summer surfs under series, and requalified. I remember I requalified through that anyway, and so I got to race the last round of Nutri-Grain with no fear and no worries, and I actually got third in the last round and got me requalification in the overall series anyway. So there's just so many positives to enjoying what you're doing and just attacking every race you can, you know, whether it's on a craft, whatever, you know, our sport's 4 disciplines, so we've got that nice flexibility.
I think you've been one of those guys who've always done a lot of racing as well. And you've always tried to do, I always found that the more racing I do, the better I get at racing. Like there's training, and training can get to you to a certain point, but unless you've like go to racing, you feel that you understand your routine, you understand how to deal with the nerves, how to deal with the pressure, how to actually perform in the moment. How important do you think racing is, especially for a young guy coming through, or even for yourself now, just staying on top of like being in that race environment? Because I know for myself, I have an extra gear when I race. Like I can train to a certain level and I feel pretty good and I can go hard, but there's always that extra place you've got to get to when you're racing. How important is racing, and how important is to have that extra level?
Yeah, it's incredibly important. And yeah, I was talking to South Australian High Performance Squad through the week, just saying, you know, when you get the opportunity, go into state, you know, get that experience of racing the best competitors at, you know, some crazier beaches kind of thing. Because, yeah, there's just nothing like it. I was saying to Paulie as well through the week, the last 6 weeks we've been racing every weekend. It's been really full on. And so the training through the week's just been, you know, like holding on, just keeping that feel and just going through the motions, and the fitness has dropped out of it. You you don't have that training fitness. But, you know, give me Australian Ironman title tomorrow, I'd probably smack it out of the park. I can't finish an hour and a half swimming and then a 30-minute run, then an hour ski session in one day, which I can normally smash out. But race fit, I'm very race fit, so I could throw down tomorrow. So it's really about having that balance of training fitness and race fitness to be able to go and probably compete to your best. So yeah, and everyone always trains probably too much and too heavily training fit rather than race fit, because there's just not the opportunity. Racing's hard to come across, especially good racing. So got to really put that on the pedestal and your priority of get into those races, you know, like you have. It's just, you know, the experience you get from it, especially if you've got international opportunities. Like, yeah, it's gold. And if you can make yourself into a racer, because many people aren't naturally, if you can make yourself a racer rather than a trainer, you're just so beneficial.
Yeah, I found that a lot. Like even now, like I can go into races, the sport in the sports that I do, and not be as fit, but can just still race, you know, and I'll be dead afterwards, but I can just stay in that zone, stay in that mindset that you need to perform to that elite level, quite comfortably. Whereas I know when I first moved up to the Gold Coast, similar story to you, geez, I'd be almost scared of racing. I'd love training, was a great trainer. I really performed in the training, but I get to a race and just be like, what happened? Like I didn't do well. And then I'd train heaps more and then not race instead of going racing more and training like maybe a little bit less even. And you kind of just learn that as you go, because you think that, I don't know, I remember like at training, especially in a lot of the surf clubs, you'd always have those people who'd get upset by somebody who was a last effort guy. And now I look at those last effort guys and going, you're a fucking racer. Like that's what you that's kind of the mindset that we need to be in, because that last effort's kind of the one that counts. It's the one that we race in. So it's interesting how your perceptions change as you get older and as you learn a lot more. So yeah, going back a little bit. So you spoke a little bit about Pooley and how well he did at marketing. Obviously, just recently retired from his professional series races. Had a great win in Summer of Surf. Almost won the last race of the Nutri-Grain as well. But you obviously live with Pooley a lot of the time, and you're quite good at your marketing as well. Like your Instagram is quite polished. You do a lot of interviews. I've seen you on Fox Sports and that type of thing. How important is that side of, I guess, professional sport these days? Because yes, you can be a racer and it's 70% of what you do or 50% of what you do, but then you've got to have the balance between managing your sponsorships, managing different people around you to make sure that you're, I guess, in the right place at the right time for different opportunities. And then obviously the media side of things is getting more and more important, because a lot of sponsors, say like someone like Red Bull, like with Matt Poole, really just focus on eyeballs. Like if you're not getting eyeballs on you, they're not going to sponsor you. Or you've got different other sponsors where you've got people who really want to be a part of your journey, or they want a certain thing, they want a sticker, or they want a certain exposure. How do you deal with, as an athlete, deal with the racing and the training and the prepared side of things, then the social media marketing side of things as well?
Yeah, it is tough, especially in a sport where, you know, you've got to make your own way kind of thing. It's not like, I look at all the AFL players, you know, they've got no Instagram followers. They don't post anything. They don't care. It's beautiful. They can just enjoy life and not have to worry about it, because it is a chore. You know, I don't even post any lifestyle stuff on my Instagram anymore. It's just basically all clubbies and, you know, to achieve a goal of supporting sponsors kind of thing, and just, yeah, posting my story, you know, to not teach, but tell people about my career and what I'm doing and things like that. So yeah, it's hard, you know, and you've got to do it as an Ironman or a ski, you know, like a ski or sup paddler. You've got to really tell people your story, and people like to hear it. You know, it's amazing sport we get to do, and not majority of people living in a city, and they don't get to, you know, see the sights we do. So it is a joy to be able to tell people and show people what I do and how I feel and what it's like out there. So and in saying that, in doing so, sponsors enjoy, you know, supporting me and getting on board as well, which is really cool, because, you know, you giving to get back, you know. So what you give is what you get back, and that's the beauty of our sport, is I get to put on a show. So that's part of it, social media, and I wish I probably didn't have to do it. You know, it's not great. I definitely live on my phone a fair bit, but to be able to do what I do and be, you know, quite successful and have a nice unit here on the Gold Coast, you know, is a great bonus as well.
And with dealing with sponsors, and I've mentioned a few times, like kids coming up, I know there's a lot of, especially like kind of confusion. I think I was speaking to a young fella that I coach from overseas the other day, and he was like, oh, like this person's posting something, and like they're posting lots, and they're getting sponsored, and they're getting this. And I'm like, I kind of just said to him, I was like, you have to do this. Like that, if you want to be a professional athlete, that's just what you have to do. Like, and nobody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey mate, like you need to start posting for us, or we're going to sponsor you. We're going to teach you how to like market yourself. Like as a young athlete or as an athlete at our age, you have to do it all yourself. Like there's nobody going to do it for you. And if you don't do it, you won't necessarily be able to achieve your dreams, you know, because you need these people to support you. Like you spoke about when you're up in Lulabar, you got $30 in your bank account. Like when I was at Northcliffe, I was living week to week. Like there's It's all these different things that you've got to be doing to be a professional athlete and be able to create it as make your dream a reality at the end of the day, because it's something that you really want to do. So I think, what advice would you give to, say, a young 18-year-old Ironman coming through? Like, how would you market yourself, and how would you deal with, I guess, the detractors as well? Because when you start doing this stuff, especially when you first start, people are just like, oh, you know, your mates or like people you don't know, like, oh, what is he doing? What is he doing? But then after a while, those sort of like voices disappear and they almost become your supporters. It's quite interesting how it all turns around. Like, you go from marketing yourself and people kind of detracting from it to, oh, these detractors are kind of just supporting you now. It's quite interesting how the cycle works. What advice would you give to these young guys?
Yeah, no, we've got a young kid at our club, Joe Collins. He was like, you know, got on the podium overall last year, incredibly up and coming Ironman, probably one of the best we've seen in a few years. He doesn't obviously post a lot. You know, there's a couple of other guys his age that post a lot, probably not as talented, but, you know, really promote themselves well. And he's like, oh, Bevy, what made you post that today? And what'd you do this? It's like, comes pretty naturally now. But yeah, you just got to think about telling your story and updating people and showing them what you're doing. What are you eating? What are you drinking? Are you stretching? You know, are you nervous today? How'd you go yesterday? You know, just tell people what you're doing and don't take it for granted. Like, try and put yourself in the headspace of people have no idea what you do and how you feel, and they would love to. Like, they don't know at the time. Like you said, those first few followers don't actually know they're enjoying watching, but they keep watching, and then all of a sudden you get a few more followers, and all of a sudden you got a bandwagon. You know, you got a few results, and there's a podium photo in there, and everyone's like, oh, hang on, this guy that I followed for a bit talking shit, it's now getting results. This is sick. I was the first person. You know, I'm staying. You know, I'm sticking around. So yeah, I think that's how it starts, and my following's pretty good now. I think. Yeah, and there's like, you know, I've got more followers than Ali Day, who's probably the second greatest sportsman in the sports scene. But I'm a little bit more raw in what I say, and I do update the story. You can tell he's a bit more, he does, but it's not really from the heart, I don't think. And people have noticed that along the way with me, because it has been a wild journey for me, and people have felt involved. So that's what people want to do. They want to jump on the bandwagon with someone, and they love an underdog, you know, like that 18-year-old. Like, it's the best platform to start from, because people love seeing, you know, the young upstart getting the big guy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like small fish eating big fish. People love that stuff. But when you're the big fish, like you probably are now, you don't like that at all.
No.
Yeah, but you've got to deal with that, and that's part of the journey. So, was someone like Matt quite influential in that part for you, like inside like your sponsorships and what you're doing? You said you were living and breathing and taking what he was doing. Obviously, motivation-wise, you're probably getting a lot of motivation from someone like Josh when you're living with him. Do you think those two guys had a lot of influence on your career?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like everyone says, you're the product of your 5 best friends or whatever. And yeah, Josh definitely was looking after that mental headspace. Not that Pooley wasn't, but Pooley was a bit more of a rock star, you know. He was volatile and things like that, but Pooley was just, you know, so focused. I mean, Josh was so obsessed with, you know, the right mindset and being the underdog superstar and achieving no matter what. Pooley was taught so well explicitly at Red Bull. He got a lot of, you know, media training. The branding was just, I remember him saying the yellow was a tiny bit off. Like, I'm talking, this was yellow for the Red Bull sun. And they wouldn't use it. And there was a tiny centimetre squared of surface area that wasn't supposed to be there. He had to throw all the stickers he printed out away, you know, because it just was slightly off. And that's, you know, just an example of how I got obsessed with what branding means and what businesses actually care about when they talk about what they want to show as their values, and how you could have the most terrible name for a brand. Like, I'm trying to think of a terrible name that's good. You know, Smeg, you know, like Smeg is just the elite premium, like, name for white goods, but it's a terrible name, but you just know it because it's just upset. It's what you've been shown for years. So if you can show your name or someone else's name in the right light a fair few times, it will become ingrained in people's memory, and it will change the whole mindset around their branding. So it's kind of what I learned from Pooley. You know, he's always documenting stuff, always taking photos when we're out. little things like that. You know, you do need to whip out your phone and take a stupid photo sometimes. If you see someone who you idolize or is a celebrity, just say, hey, mate, let's get a photo, you know, and like get a selfie with them. Like it's about telling your story, and people don't care. People love it at their roots. Yeah.
And speaking of branding, and I've always looked at myself as kind of like a business. And you're speaking about branding of other brands, but now you're talking about branding about yourself as an athlete. What do you think Matt Bevilacqua represents as a brand? Because I guess the way that you represent yourself as a brand, as an athlete, will help you align with companies that mean the same type of things. So what would you say Matt Bevilacqua, like if you had to go 3 attributes or a defining sentence, what would Matt Bevilacqua stand for?
Unstoppable. The engine room, you know. Nah. I don't know. It's I actually think about that a lot. Like I look at my Instagram and I go, what do people see when they see mine, you know, this brand? Because I've lived it, you know. I don't really see how it's grown and adapted. I'm always thinking about what should I post? What do people want to see me post? Like what are they liking the most? You know, what photos? And they actually like the behind the scenes stuff more, which is cool. So I think they like, you know, me as a person. Like I'm determined and I've lived unstoppable. You know, I've had the most probably improved Ironman career that's probably been, which I like to think that's what I look like. But I think people like the likable guy, you know, the guy that's friends with Pooley, the guy that has a brother in Bondi that he likes to go see. They're my most liked photos. The ones with Isla and Brielle, you know, like I don't know if it's people that like my lifestyle, but I think, yeah, friendship and, you know, accessibility, that kind of thing. That's probably what is associated with my brand maybe. But like I said, it's hard to see from once you develop something. I can look at a brand and tell you what's what, but because it's actually me, it's hard to understand what it is from the outside.
Yeah, totally. I guess for you it'd be like personable, professional. Like you're probably a premium athlete. You present very well. So you're like aligning with those like higher end brands, I think, because that's the way that you're presenting yourself. Like all your images are polished, they're clean, they're very well like edited. Your captions are in depth, which draws people in. You're sort of able to tell your story quite comfortably, and you're happy to relate to people, and people are happy to come in and start talking to you about your story because it relates to them. And I think that's something that a lot of athletes need to do better, but you're one of the athletes that does it really well. So yeah, good stuff. And then we talk about sponsors a little bit as well. So you're obviously wearing Shaw and Partners Financial Services. They've been a fantastic supporter of, I guess, ocean sports in general for the last 6 or 7 years, and I guess that's continuing going forward. You've obviously been like partnered with Nutri-Grain for a long time. You're wearing the Northlift logo. What have been your major sponsors over time, and how much influence have they been on your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I was really young, Engine did approach me and said, you know, do you want? Well, no, they didn't approach me. I approached them and said, can I get some swimmers? So I think I was really young. I must have just left Tassie, but obviously they enjoyed the Tassie connection, and with clubbies down there, they're buying a lot of Engine swimwear. So yeah, I remember going to a meeting with them, and Toby's really marketing head, you know, and he goes, yeah, so what can you bring my brand? And I was like, I remember we're up at Richard saying upstairs in one of his units. I go, shit, you know, I can wear the togs. I look pretty good, you know, like no idea what to say. And yeah, and that's where the learning journey begins. They say, listen, I'm going to give you $1,000 or $2,000 worth of gear. Oh, probably more than that, but we'll give you some gear. That's still worth $1,000 or $2,000 to me. How am I going to get my money back? How? Am I just giving it to you? And I'm like, well, some Tassie people will buy it. They go, do you reckon they're buying $1,000 or $2,000 worth of gear throughout the year? And I'm like, yeah, maybe just. He goes, well, that's all right then. Yeah, maybe they are. So we'll start with this. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I learned to really learn how you can give back to those brands. And over the years, you know, Engine's been, you know, my earliest sponsor, and they still to this day are amazing. You know, they've got all these rashies going down for a clinic in Tassie next week, and got Debbie on the front surfing on a board. And yeah, so it really is a good journey of learning, and it doesn't happen overnight. With Nutri-Grain, obviously they've been fantastic, been on the box. We've done some really cool stuff in terms of brand imagery, like the shippies and helicopter tow. But yeah, it's still really hard, and you try and figure out what people want and how they're adapting and what their brand wants to message out. And yeah, been really lucky to have, Engine, Nutri-Grain, Body Science on board now, which are awesome. And yeah, just try and really promote them. And I would never take on a brand that I can't live by and what I actually understand and what I use every day. So yeah, it's good.
And so being at Northcliffe now as well, and I guess you're one of their marquee athletes. You're at Curra for a while as well. What's it like being like sort of a marquee athlete at a surf club?
Yeah, it is tough. You've got a few extra obligations, but I look at my role at Northcliffe as a mentoring role to get kids like Joe Collins. Got a fair few young kids there now, and yeah, so it's more of a coaching role. Like when I come to a session, it's not just all about me anymore. It's more about giving back. Obviously, Shore Partners are a big part of the reason at Northcliffe, and promote them, which is easy. I look at my marquee role at Northcliffe as more of a mentoring role, which is good fun. So that's how I can give back. I'm going to be there for a few years, leading those kids through the roller coaster of the sport, and that's where I can really help, I think. In terms of promoting the club and the sponsors, that stuff's easy. I do that every day anyway for myself. So yeah, it's a great role. We've got such a massive club there, so many working parts, and it's really good to represent such a strong club and, work with the surf sports guys to, make our squad bigger and better and get bigger guys and make the squads stronger. So yeah, it's cool.
So what is it about a club like Northcliffe that allows them to win? I think they've won obviously for a decade in the Australian Championships. They have a quite a proud name, I think, in surf sports. They've got a bunch of great people who help run the club. But the vibe at Northcliffe's always been about excellence and winning. But you don't really see the other side of things. Like I remember like early days, it was like the Northcliffe boys and we'd have fun. And there was like kind of like lots of moving parts, as you suggested. But what keeps these clubs winning all the time?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I'm still learning Northcliffe. I've only been there a couple of years. You spend a lot of time there, and guys like Wally Williams, the surf sports officer and manager, he's just so passionate about the club. He comes back to passion, doesn't it? Every time, it's all about what you enjoy doing, and he loves making that club the best thing it can possibly be. Whether it's getting events there, whether it's getting marquee athletes there, whether it's nurturing the kids, getting them clubby boards when they can't afford it, or getting them their own swim fees paid for. Tiny little things that keep a family in the club to eventually, be a senior and have the parents, down the beach at training and helping out and things like that. It's guys like that are the key. And we've had two key guys, him, Wally, and Shieldsy as president. He's been working in those boards, supporters and surf life saving boards to keep the club connected and communicating and keep all those systems working well. So yeah, it's a crazy club. I still get my head around all the stuff that goes on in there because incredibly successful. I don't think I've lost a world champion Australian championship since the early thousands. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's been an amazing club, and I guess it's a staple for surf sports in general. We spoke a little bit about Nutri-Grain, but take us back to 17, 18 when you won your first Nutri-Grain Ironman title. I guess a little bit about the racing, but more about what it meant for you as an Ironman. Because we spoke about before, like you moved up the Gold Coast, you just want to be the best Ironman. Oh, sorry, moved up to the Sunshine Coast, just trying to be the best Ironman that you can be. But you get to the pinnacle pretty quickly. Like it was only 3 to 4 years while you're in the series before you won it. What was that like? And sort of, was that a big relief? Was it excitement? Was it, I can't believe I've done this? Like, what was the feeling like once you did it?
Yeah, it was relief. And look, I look back on it now and I don't think I fully deserved it. And I say I hate saying that because in our sport, when you win 6 rounds, you deserve it. It doesn't matter how lucky you get, you know what I mean? But it was definitely before, like my ability now surpasses that ability back then by so much, you know what I mean? And, I was almost there winning a series this year, but I haven't really been in the fight I have been, but very, very far from my ability now. And I'd got it. And so I was very relieved that I got it. And I was like, yeah, that was a bonus. But, I think I was so keen to attack the next few years and get another one, and prove to myself that I deserved it. And I could do it with the relief of having done it, which is the big part of sometimes attacking those big goals. If you've got it, you can just attack it with, no care in the world. You don't have anything to lose. So it's been disappointing that I haven't been able to get another one of those, and I reckon over the next few years I will get another one. But yeah, it was fantastic to achieve it and put myself on that Grand Slam, because we got the 3, the Coolangatta Gold, the Nutri-Grain Aussies, and just to get a Grand Slam, and say that I would retire happy man.
So why are you so hard on yourself about winning the Nutri-Grain title? Like, you obviously you're half his critic, but why do you think you didn't deserve it?
I suppose if you'd asked me that then, I think I would have deserved it. I think I would have said, yeah, I deserve it. I got second in the final race, beat Ali by a place and pipped him by a point, or like something on countback. I think it was so close. But to beat a guy like Ali Day, who's 2 years older than me back then, it's pretty impressive. And I was, 6 rounds over different locations. It was a long series that year. I did get a bit of luck in the surf, but is there any luck in the surf? Things like that. I just think, looking back on it now, that's it. And you don't, I just want to make sure that I can achieve another one, I think. And, just make sure that it wasn't a fluke, but yeah, it's hard to explain.
Well, I think you've just got to be able to put yourself in those positions over time, and it'll come to you when you maybe sometimes, as it sounds like, when you least expect it, because like you had been putting in the work since you were 7 years old. Like you wanted this achievement for so long. Like, because being the professional Ironman Series champion was something that we all looked up to. Like going from the Toby's days to the Nutri-Grain days, and that was always like the number one thing you wanted to win. Obviously, the Australian Ironman title as well. That you want to win that as well, and you've done that. You won the Australian Ironman title, haven't you?
No, so yeah, I've got the gold and the Nutri-Grain, and yeah, if I can get the Australian Ironman title, I'll be one of only 3 to have done it. I'm pretty sure, because Zane Holmes has done it, Ali Day has done it, and I think maybe Darren Mercer. Yeah. So if I can get an Australian Ironman title, which is probably like in a few weeks' time.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be huge.
That would be awesome. Sorry, I just misinterpreted what you said, because I thought you'd said you'd won, and I was like, I didn't read that beforehand.
I was research is off.
I was like,
no, you're right on.
I know you won the board race, but you haven't won the iron yet. So, no. But you did win the gold.
Yeah. So I won the gold in 2019 with that sprint finish against Pooley.
Yeah. What a brutal way to win. But say you have to be clutch in those moments, and same thing what happened when you beat Ali by one place in that Ironman series to decide the title. Like, you got to be there. You got to be willing to do that. And I think that's probably what killed you in that round 5 at Surfers recently, or Karawa recently, when you stuffed it up, because you've been clutching so many moments. Like I think watching you run up and sprint finish, like, I don't know, 6 guys to win the Aussie board final that year. You've got to be able to be clutching those moments. And what do you think allows you to perform to that level? Like, do you think you want it more than everybody else? Have you trained harder? Like, are you doing it for a higher purpose? Like, what in those moments that you have to be clutch, what are you thinking? What is triggering you? Like, why do you want to win?
In those moments, especially, I think you want to have in the back of your mind that you've done the most work. I think those guys that, just when the pressure's on, when you're at the utmost of your fatigue, but in the core of your mind, deep down that you've done everything possible to be in that moment the best you can be, it really helps. And so the guys that have done the work and they keep putting themselves in those in those positions, to be in those sprint finishes, you will win them. And that's what it's about. And I think that's what that 17, 18 years was, I got a bit of luck, but I was in those positions and I kept putting myself in those positions, being consistent for those 6 rounds, and all of a sudden a series comes forward. So, Josh Minogue won the gold that time. He was always just there. He was always in the fight for those golds. Yeah, he got pipped most years, but then finally everything went right, and in sport, that's all you got to do is just keep putting yourself in the race, in those winning positions, but also having done the work. There's a lot of guys that are good, natural, talented racers that haven't done the training, but they'll put themselves in those winning positions and they'll just lose because in the deep depths of their mind, they know they haven't done as much as the next guy, and they'll get in that position, but they won't be quite as good in the clutch moments because of that reason.
Yeah, I think it's so important to be able to just perform when it counts and just put everything on the line and just give it everything you can. And like one of my favorite quotes is like, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your highest level of preparation. And I think that resonates in every moment. Like when you like sprint finishing, like in a sup race, or you're running to the finish line in an Ironman race, like if you're not prepared, you're just not going to be able to do it. Like you just can't, you're not going to like, something miraculous doesn't just happen for you. Like even in the surf, like, yes, you were there for the waves, but you have to be in there to get those waves, or you have to be like roundabouts. So like for those guys that get hit, like that's the hardest thing in surf lifesaving that I found, especially growing up, was that you could be the best guy, but you could not necessarily win because of a wave or a different, like you might be in the rip and the rip stands up and you get belted or something like that. So everything's always changeable, but at the same time, top guys are always winning. And there's only 5 guys who win, or there's, like over a whole season, there's only a few guys who actually win that race. And it shows that hard work, determination, consistency over long periods of time get you those results.
Yeah. And even just in a 3-leg Ironman race, rather than a single ski race, we eliminate so much more of the luck factor. It's never gone completely, but it's really eliminated so that mostly the guys who are good, who are the best, will actually win. Still, a lot of times not, but you just got to keep putting yourself in those positions knowing you've done the work, because it just does wonders for your self-confidence as well as obviously your best physical self.
Yeah, I still remember Cam Cole winning the Australian Ironman title, sprinting up the beach against Tanner Linden, and it was like 15 guys on the line, he was training hard, he was always there, but you would have never expected him to win. But that's just one of those things in surf lifesaving that...
Yeah, and he'd always been there though, he'd always been making those Australian finals. Yeah, he didn't really go in with the best prep, but he was a naturally talented runner who wasn't really a talented Ironman, but he kept making those finals. It wasn't his first final, it was like his bloody 7th, he's the ultimate Ironman finalist, and yet got himself up the beach. Yeah, there's so many examples of where, good guys, they don't always win the first time, but you'll get the opportunity if you keep doing the work.
And you've spoken a lot about Michael King and the Ironman Academy up at Mooloolaba, and obviously he was one of the coaches, or the coach, that had the most influence on your career. What were the other coaches along the way that have had a heavy influence on you? And after you left Michael King Ironman Academy, were you still, I guess, getting coached, or were you more so starting to learn to coach yourself?
Yeah, I definitely had done my apprenticeship after the 6 years of Kingy. Still needed someone to bounce ideas off, but was learning a lot by myself. I'd learned how to learn. I was obviously, good at school, so I was very good at learning myself. So, could really learn from each race pretty well myself. But Barry Newman at Kurrawa was fantastic, really loose coach, could do what you wanted with the program, but, could communicate with him, bounce ideas, fantastic race day. One of the big reasons for my move to the Gold Coast was Dennis Cottrell at Miami Swimming Pool. So, he coached like Grant Hackett and Tom Fraser-Holmes still at the time. I got a year with them before Hackey didn't quite make his last Olympic trials. So, fantastic coach Dennis, really hard-ass, like really good technically based, but hard-assed. And, he'd have some big speeches, on the pool deck. It was really cool. Really, I look back on it now and just go, so lucky to be able to get a few years with Dennis before he went to China and coached Sun Yang and stuff. I think you trained with Dennis. Hey, he's just he was down there all last weekend watching, just loving it.
I used to love hearing Dennis's speeches about how much better Grant Hackett was than everybody else. He used to be doing this, and they used to be doing this, and you'd be like,
but how good were those speeches then? How lucky were we to get those speeches? Not many coaches will stand there and go, I've coached champions like this. They did this, they did that, they did this, and I'm there going, I'm doing that. I will die. I will do that. I promise. It's like crazy yelling and stuff, but resonated.
Yeah. And so with swimming coaches now, who are you training under now for swimming?
So Raylene Ryan at Miami, she's basically the same program as what Dennis did. Yeah, so just a different coach, similar program.
Yeah, Raylene was the coach under Dennis at the time when I was still swimming back in 2013, wasn't she?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
she's been around a while. Yeah.
Well, she was. I think that was my main coach. I might have been able to jump over in lane 1. I think a couple of times, but not very often. Molokai, 5 times Molokai to Oahu Paddleboard Champion. I guess firstly, why did you want to do that in the first place? It's a little bit separate to what you normally do. Surf life saving is obviously mostly through September through to April. that's your main part of the season, but then you're jumping over at the end of July and going over to do Molokai. Why did you want to do it, and what was like the driver, I guess, for it in general?
Yeah, good question. It did come from me loving my board paddling, and I really was quite talented at catching runners. I wasn't really winning a whole lot of board races at the start of Molokai. That was good, but hadn't really made many Aussie finals or got medals for that matter. But yeah, love catching runners. Whenever we turn, Cam Cole was like the best. When we turned from doing a big into the wind set, I'd go pretty much level with him or even beat him, but not going into it. So just had a strength in it and thought, this is a sick race. Like and I still think this is the most iconic race to go and race from one island to another in open ocean where you can't even see the other competitors and you're relying on a boat to tell you left or right. I just thought when Paulie was training to do it the year before I did it, I just thought that is the coolest thing. Look at the size of those boards. They're 6 meters long, really, really cool. So when Mooloolaba disbanded the surf club surf sports program, just cut it completely. Everyone had to scatter. I'd planned to do Molokai basically that May disbandment. Coach Kingy gone Gold Coast, and I had no one. So yeah, that was the first year, and was training by myself. Developed my own training program. I was still 6 years. I'd had Kingy. I knew what I was doing. But yeah, I was like trying to call people, trying to figure out where am I going in this race, where's my boat crew? And yeah, it was a crazy first year, but just, loved it. Loved board paddling, loved catching runners. And that's where I started.
And did you win your first time?
Yeah. So I'm 5 from 5 so far.
Oh, wow. Yeah, awesome. And who were you racing? Who were your main competitors when you were going over and racing?
Yeah, so the year before, Paulie had won, but he didn't race Brad Gould, who was the double. He's won twice before. So I was going in that year against Gawley, who was coming back, and Rory Chapman, and a couple of other guys. So Cam Cole, I think, raced that year. Paulie had done his knee. So Paulie had been surfing in Towers and done his knee, and he couldn't come and race, but he was coming over anyway. So really funny story. I didn't know what I was doing in terms of navigating the channel. You normally need to do it when you first go, but Paulie said, I'll jump on your boat. So I was like, you're kidding. So that year we crossed, it was just dead flat. It took us 5.5 hours. There was not a breath of wind, but there was a huge swell hitting the finish line. It was like 8 foot. It was huge. And they put a buoy off trying to walk because people were going to cut it was just death. And so there's this really cool footage of me paddling around the buoy, with Gawley just 60 seconds behind. We're 5.5 hours. I was planning to race for 4.5 hours, and just blew that out and was running through the boat channel, looking at Gawley, who was taking a 10-foot set out the back, and Paulie's screaming at me, keep paddling on my boat. So it was really cool, Paulie was there when I won my first year, and Dad wasn't there or anything like that. They didn't think I was going to go that good. Dad did miss another year, but it was cool to have Paulie there for the first win. It was just, a pretty cool moment. And
what kept you going back?
Well, that's the weird one, isn't it? It's such a brutal race, and I'd won one, but I just, wanted to, well, the reason I went back the first year was definitely because I wanted to do it in runners. That was a dead flat year. It was horrible. I was so bloated from the amount of carbs I had to keep eating and drinking. I wasn't prepared for that time on the water.
Yeah.
So I went back for the runners the next year, cooking, world record, epic time. And so the third year I was like, I want more of that, and went third year.
And what was your first year? Sorry. So you went back to back every year?
Yeah. 5 years in a row.
The first year was like 2015? Or earlier than that?
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
15 must have been.
Yeah.
So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So I don't know. The last year I remember being motivated by the wriggler coming to do the race. He didn't end up getting a board in time or something, so he didn't do it, which was really frustrating because I could feel my motivation waning. So that motivation was great for the 5th, even though he didn't even rock up, but that's what got me through the training. And I really, I want to go back again, but yeah, my motivation's waning. So I need a moment. Maybe I have to let him go and win one and go and race him, but I need some kind of hunger, I think, at this point.
How important is it to have competitors to push you and drive you towards your goals? Like you mentioned it there, and I've done exactly the same thing where somebody else is racing, so you want to race to beat them, or
Yeah.
how important is that for you, and how often do you draw on that? Because I like you draw on so many different parts of motivation. You draw on like your internal motivation, like for your own goals and what you want to achieve, like your short-term goals, your long-term goals, but then you draw from external factors like I'm a bit silly. Like I'll see things that people like write me off, or like if people like say something bad about me on social media, I'll just like grab that and just like throw it on the fire. It's like and it will get me up and go to train like every session that week, and it'll get me to train for like 2 months. Like how important is that those different types of intrinsic and extrinsic motivations for you?
Yeah, incredibly. And throughout those 5 years, I'm trying to think back, but there were different people each year. So Pooley came back that second year, had to beat Pooley. Then Cuffy came, was an amazing ball pala here in Australia. And yeah, so they were really motivational each year. As well as, I wanted to get the record. I wanted to keep lowering that record. I wanted to set a record that could never be beaten. So there was always that internal one as well as external. And yeah, a mixture of the two, even better. But yeah, if you need to, wait for someone external, then so be it. Because I don't know, I don't think I'll go near the record unless, even if it do get the same conditions, I think I was at my peak. I don't know if I could be physically any better. So yeah, maybe 30 seconds or whatever, but not far.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good to set that world record and lower that as close as I could. But yeah, now I'm kind of relying maybe on some challenges or whatever. And I don't want to keep going back every year. So maybe just wait until they're all there and set up a bit of it. Because I'm only 29, I've probably got a few years to do it. So see what happens. It's hard to plan those things. You don't want to cancel anything out and you don't want to commit either.
Yeah. So I guess now, as a 29-year-old Ironman, what's getting you out of bed? What are you still striving towards?
Oh, well, I think we touched on it before. To win that Australian Ironman title is huge, because that would put me, up there with those guys, which is just an amazing opportunity. I haven't, obviously, being the delayed start from Tassie, I haven't been able to win a whole lot of titles. I think I was always behind the eight ball to compare to maybe someone like Ali or Shannon. Even my upbringing, missing those crucial years, but peaking at 8, being Ali at 18 and Pooley at 19 kind of thing. I was always going to be behind the eight ball, but I've got an opportunity to put myself with those names by just winning maybe all three if I can. Yep. Just an incredible feat if I can do it. But yeah, lots still stands in my way, and Ali's just at the peak of his powers in Australia. So yeah, that Australian title will be hard to get.
And that's your ultimate goal?
Oh, no, my goals are just that, as I always have been. I haven't really looked too far in front, but yeah, my goal at the moment, I'm obsessed with winning the Australian title, because that's the next one. The minute that's over, if we can go to the ski race in May in Hawaii, I'll be obsessed with that, if I do my best at that race and doing 8 weeks of good prep, go to Hawaii. After that, maybe it's the gold, I don't know. But at the moment, I kind of just, definitely just the next goal is the next competition.
Yeah, the next thing. So you're just focusing on hard on like what the next thing is. Like you're sort of structured, like if you once you finish the Australian Ironman title, whether you win or you don't, then it's like, now it's Molokai. And then it's like, okay, then what's next? Then it's that one. You're sort of really sort of short-term focused in a way, but obviously you have a long-term projection of what you want to do.
I've booked that Hawaii flight. I know I'm going to Hawaii and I'm looking forward to it, but the training's not on my mind. I'm not looking at my feet and going, can't wait to paddle that after Aussies. After Aussies doesn't exist for me yet. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, everything is about Sunday of Aussies for me at this point. So yeah, just short-term focus, long-term back in mind.
Yeah. Okay. What would your greatest victory be?
Oh, my greatest victory.
What's the first one that comes to mind?
Winning an Australian title for sure. Winning all three of those things.
No. What is your greatest victory to date?
What was? Winning the Coolangatta gold, because it was a childhood goal, because we did it when we were kids, and like you could always compete in that event. It was anyone can enter the gold. So it was a proper lifelong goal, I think, to have myself on that trophy and, the movie, all that stuff. it was really special. Yeah.
And what would you say was the hardest loss that you've ever had?
Oh, I'd say when I got DQ'd at the trial, that was probably the most sad I've ever been. Like I said, and then the round 5 of the series, it was pretty bad. Like I could have probably been in a fight for the series if I put pressure on Ali for that Sunday. Who knows what could have happened? So that was bad too.
So you had a pinpoint one. Is there one that just grinds on you, or is there a couple?
Yeah, well, at the moment it's round 5. It's grinding on me.
Yeah.
Hard to
think past that one.
Yeah, there was a couple of come on, I can surely think of something. Obviously not, because they're not too bad. When I won the Australian board race, I was really emotional. Really, I've never been more emotional after I won that, because the previous 2 years they're incredibly hard to win. So like the single race, like I was saying, there's a lot of luck involved, kind of thing. I hate saying that, but I'd led round the last 2 years. I'd made the final. I'd led round, done all the hard work, and I'd lost. And I was really thinking I was going to be one of the board paddlers to never win one. So, when I won those, I think, some of the hardest losses would have been that first board race I won, and the Wriggler got the runner at Perth, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So far behind me, and got smoked there. That was heartbreaking. Don't know.
Do you think those losses? Do you think those losses drive you harder though, or do they sometimes just break you down?
No. Like I've said, the commitment to learning and from those mistakes, and committing to the processes after them, and loving what I do definitely didn't hurt me too much. Someone with a really external mindset of they're just doing it because they're good at it, or they're doing it because they just want the medal and the results, could have hurt them. But very lucky that I enjoy what I do. And like I said, I think it's the reason for my success is because that motivation's internal. It's really just comes from the love of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully that continues, and hopefully you keep driving forward. I guess for me, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years?
So I think, I love the ski paddling, and that'll be the next goal after Ironman, I reckon, and just put on a bit more muscle, focus on, some skiing.
I don't know if you need more muscle. I've seen you in some recent photos. I think you've got enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I slimmed down from the Coolangatta Gold in 2019. I never really put weight back on, so just like 2 kilos less. But it'd be really cool to have a go at Molokai for a few years. Just enjoy ocean paddling, because I just honestly do love it.
Yeah.
The board paddling, I've burnt myself out a bit, but ski, that love's there. And 36, 37, you can really still be at the peak of your powers on the ski, I think.
Yeah. I've got a couple of questions from when I posted last night, so I'll just shout those out now. Cool. So from Say Atkinson, what is a typical training week for you, and what is your nutrition intake like?
Well, so typical training week is 4 swims a week. I run 3 times a week, just a really short core gym session, so no weights, 2 times a week, so 20, 25 minutes. And then in the afternoons, we alternate ski, board, with 2 Ironman sessions. So 4 swims, 3 run, 2 gym cores, and then it's like 2 ski, 2 board kind of things, with 2 Ironman sessions Wednesday morning and Saturday morning that are our key. Lots of sessions. With that comes high volume nutrition, higher volume, clean, okay food. I'm not having a burger tonight. I'm having burgers and chips, but, I'll make sure I have a little side of salad with it. I'll have dessert, but just decent, clean food, and a lot of it.
Yeah. And there's no special diet you're on. You're just trying to eat wholesome foods, I don't know, what's that 9 food groups or whatever we grew up with, going to school. You're just trying to eat healthy, clean food.
Yeah, balance of lots of carbs, lots of protein, and heaps of vitamins, minerals, and veggies and fruit. I drink a lot of electrolytes and the body science stuff. So the amino acid blend I'll have each day, and a little bit of creatine each day, just to make sure I'm always fired up and have all of that stocked up. Lots of vitamins each day as well. I'm peeing yellow every morning.
Do you have
just so you know? Yeah. Just so you know, you're fully stocked up on the vitamins and stuff. I know I'm peeing yellow each morning, but I know every day I'm stocked up, if I miss, a few food groups or I'm not having enough fruit and veg a day, I know that I'm always peaking and I'm taking in enough. Yeah.
Now, is that important for you to be able to perform, obviously, as one part, but then to be able to stop yourself from getting sick? Because that must be a really hard thing to do when you are doing, I guess, 16 or so sessions a week and you're training like similar amount of hours. So how hard is it to not get sick, and how hard is it to maintain that level pretty much from September through to April? Obviously, when you're racing, you're not training as much, but when you are doing those big weeks leading into the preseason, how hard is it to maintain that health?
Yeah, and that's what, you keep that diet clean for is, look, just don't go getting those takeaway options and having those vitamins each day. Know that I'm just dealing with it the best you can, because those flat days, if you just have a couple of days of just, you're really busy as well. Like, you're obviously running around all the time. You don't always have time to make a beautiful chicken salad sandwich each day for lunch to get those, good meals in. So the vitamins help with that. Always stock full. And it's difficult, and it's got to always be on your mind. So I'm taking supplements to negate those bad days.
And from Oscar Bartos, he's asked about the routine, but we've already gone through that. But your advice on how to maintain your discipline to your routine, how do you just stick to it?
So that week is incredibly challenging. If you can get through all of those, it's almost 3 sessions a day. There's a few tours there. If you can get through that week, you're killing it. And if you can then back to back maybe 4 of those weeks, it's a huge program and you'll be ready to go. There's probably only 2 or 3 guys in our squad that can actually put our training week back to back for 4 weeks, which is pretty silly. Like, it's set for the elite of the elite, because we have elite guys, we have recreational guys all train together. So we have our program set for the best, and not obviously anyone can do it, but the key to routine and succeeding that routine is keeping on sticking to it. The minute, if I miss a Wednesday afternoon session and then the next week it gets to Wednesday afternoon, I'm tired because I've set that routine into my body. So I can see that with people that will they'll take a couple of sessions off, but then the next week the next week might be race week, and they'll try and do all the sessions, and they'll be like, oh shit, I'm a bit tired this week. And I'm like, yeah, you did two extra sessions this week. Like, your body will tell you about that. Like, when you're on the cusp and the edge of fatigue and what we do, the 2 extra sessions will hurt. So all about just building really slowly to that routine and getting to those number of sessions and sticking to it and really doing your best to keep that routine, because your body will adapt and it will make it a lot easier if you stick to it.
Yeah. Okay. Emily Grace has asked, I think she must be a young girl. She's 14 and she lives in the country, which I'm assuming she lives in Australia. She goes, she lives in the country, maybe in the country in Australia. Is it too late to start to train to become an Iron Woman?
Wow. Yeah, like I said before, it's never too late, and you have all the time in the world. So, and when you're attacking these goals and you make a few decisions to go after something, things can open up for you. Like I said, with the moving away from Tassie, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't think I was going to be an Ironman, but what I did enjoy it, and I eventually became an Ironman. But I moved from home and I tried something new, and pathways open up. So but never too late. I was still not in the series when I was 21. I was years behind a lot of the guys that were already through and in 4 years earlier. So go for it. Move to the coast.
Yeah. Okay, Johnny Lucas, how do you handle your nerves when you're knowing you have to perform?
Yeah, that's a good one. And you're just learning all the time with that. And it's a unique thing to you. You need to think about what works for you. And to me, I always used to, especially when I was younger, I used to go back to, I'm lucky to be here. How good is this? I get to go out there. Look at these guys. These are the best in the world. And I get to go out there and throw down with them. Relish the challenge. Just even if you have to say it out loud to yourself, I love this challenge. I love being here. Say it to yourself out loud, because, even if it's lying to yourself, your subconscious takes it in. But for me, I actually did enjoy what I was doing, no matter what level, no matter where I was. If I could just remind myself I enjoyed being there, then it's a good headspace to be in, and you could remove a few nerves.
And on that, what do you think about when you're on the start line?
Yeah, the processes. So every single little step of that race, from my board plant or my jump start or where I was going to run or what the wind's doing, you know, where the swell's coming, where the hole is, all the little things that you need to get right. And yeah, if you keep yourself busy with the processes, you can get rid of the nerves as well, which helps. Also breathing. I'm breathing a lot. It's like when I'm actually on the start line, lots of in through my nose, deep through the mouth, lots of eat through the nose, deep through the mouth, and really try and oxygenate your blood at the start. It's a good help.
And you're really trying to manage your heart rate as well, I assume, by doing that breathing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that as well. And you can focus on it a bit if you've run out of, well, you should never run out of the processes you need to attack. But yeah, just internal, you've got control of your breath. Things might be a bit crazy. You might be held off the start line for a bit. And yeah, bit of meditation, I suppose that is. But yeah, lowering that heart rate, oxygenating your blood.
And would you call the things that you've just described the zone for you?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, the ideal racing zone. When people say they're in the zone and they go, oh, I don't know how to say it. I think of the times when we do our Ironman race and I know I'm doing everything right while I'm racing. That's what I love. That's what I like and call being in the zone. It's like when you're in tune with the ocean. I'm just side by side with Ali, or I'm out in front and I'm doing all the right stuff. That's really, really cool moment that you can actually feel during the race.
And do you prefer to be out in front or chasing?
I don't know. Yeah, I prefer out in front, I suppose, for sure. You got room to work with. You can make your own decisions and you're not distracted. I don't mind chasing either, to be honest, but being out in front's pretty nice.
You spoke about processes and you spoke about doing all the things and doing everything right. How do you react when something goes wrong?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I like to say I'm completely focused on the next step, but yeah, it's tough. You really need to stay focused. Thinking back to the series, everything. Well, even on the weekend, I had a really good board start. Me and Colin got this massive board wave out in front. Had a horrible swim leg and felt terrible. I was really underdone with energy. I had nothing to give, and I was a bit stressed about that because it's not normally how I feel. But I knew that the ski leg was everything. We're racing in 6-foot surf. It's all down to the ski leg. Just forget about how you're feeling and go back to, right, let's go. So I remember throwing down my ski and going, yep, I'm in 8th. Let's stick to your plan. Go south, navigate this back bank, give it everything because you're never out of the fight. So it's all about getting back to those processes and trying not to be distracted for too long.
Yeah. Tom Scott, at what point did surf become your full-time income? Like what time did you switch over from working in a bar or whatever you were doing to actually being able to go, right, this is my job?
Yeah. So when I moved to the Gold Coast, and Carol started looking after me a bit as well, was really good. So that's when I stopped working. So I was 20 or 25 maybe. And even then I was still studying, finishing my degree, and about to go into relief teaching, which I still do now. So I could be completely professional, but it's good to have my fingers in, my degree that I'll lean on when I retire. And yeah, so I was always really careful though about never working for more money, like never actually just going to the bar to get some extra money saved for a car. As long as I had enough money to live on, I could compete and use my 20s and that beginning of my career to my best, rather than a few people, that enjoy the extra money and take those extra shifts. I was never like that. I was like, I've enough to feed myself for rent and I'm happy with that for now, because I'm investing in my career.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you've paddled a SUP, but from Martino Rogai, he's an Italian SUP paddler. How much does SUP and kayak complement? It's probably a question for me more than you, but have you done much SUP paddling?
Yeah, we did it at deep water, man. We paddled on our knees.
Oh, that's right. So in that one instance that you've paddled a SUP and maybe you've dumped on it a couple of times elsewhere, do you find there's any similarities, like just from an external perspective?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, there's definitely similarities there with the catch and where you should be running the paddle kind of thing. But yeah, it's a very unique movement, isn't it? Like it's very different from the rotation that ski paddling's based on. Like I'd say there's more similarities between swimming and ski paddling because it's all about rotation, you know, and we're rotating your torso like 90 degrees like that, like same as ski like that. But yeah, I can't. Mate, you could nail that question.
yeah. I'll answer that question at different times. This conversation is not about me. Well, Hector's asked, how much does Ironman earn a year? I would just probably rephrase that and say, does an Ironman earn a decent wage at the professional level?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say I'll talk about Ali because I don't know and I'm only guessing. He would earn around 200 grand this year, I reckon, maybe a bit more. I don't know. So yeah, it does vary year to year. I definitely don't need to work or anything like that. In terms of prize money, Summer Surf has 400 grand, the Gold has about 200, and the Series another 250. So obviously the winners are only getting a small percentage of that, but if I've podiumed on all three of those kind of thing, it's really does add up. So fantastic to have, sponsors like Shore and Partners, doing wonders for the sport in that area. And it can mean that young kids like 17s are getting some prize money. They can, start thinking about making a career from this sport, which is great. So I think, I reckon the top 3 or 4 guys would definitely be on, 6 figures, which is pretty cool. And yeah, Ali killing it. Getting the prize money is a bit of a bonus too.
Yeah, the prize money seems to have really increased in the last couple of years, obviously with Shore and Partners' involvement. You got the Nutri-Grain Series and the Coolangatta Gold, and I guess all the other opportunities that come with that as well. So it's just great to see the sport in a good spot, because I know like years ago when I left, like one of the decisions for me to stop committing to surf lifesaving was even if I'm in the top 6 in the series, I probably wasn't able to make a living out of it. And I was never that guy. Like if I made the series, I'm probably going to be like top 20, like I just run around and just try and make it and that sort of thing. So, but I think it's really turned around. I think it's just amazing to see for the sport. And for all you guys that I sort of knew that going through, it's just great to see that you guys have a platform to bounce off and have a career now. I'll leave this. We'll make this the last question. Archie Davos asked, over the duration of a carnival, I guess like Aussies in the state and that type of thing, what do you eat and snack on, and what do you think like hydrates you the best throughout the carnival?
Yeah, good question. And it is hard because just being on the beach in the sun, you don't feel hungry a lot. I still do leave the beach starving. It's just hard. But yeah, just anything you enjoy, like muffins or muesli bars, fruit and nuts and stuff like that. I'm smacking like, amino acids and electrolytes in this bottle all day. It's really important, the fluids. Yeah, just anything you're comfortable in eating is clean and nice. Walk through the fruit and the nuts, mixed nuts section, find what you enjoy that's not too unhealthy, and even some dark chocolate, stuff like that. Just anything you can get in that's nice, clean carbs, or high GI carbs is good too. Raspberry jam, white sandwiches, Harry Brown loves those. They're great.
Yeah, and if you just like learned that over time, what you wanted, like have you studied it, or you've just learnt from trial and error as you've gone along? Because obviously, like racing at Nutri-Grain compared to racing at a normal carnival is kind of like different setup, because you can kind of plan everything on Nutri-Grain day, but state or Aussies, I might be racing at 10, I might be racing 11 or 2 or 3 or 7 or,
Yeah, and you're on the beach all day. Yeah, so Nutri-Grain, I'm just get up, have my poached eggs, avocado, I have my coffee like an hour before, and then I'm down the race, and I'll have enough. I'll be pretty empty-stomached for the Nutri-Grain, but I'm only racing 40 minutes, so smack it out, and then I'm kind of hungry after. I'm definitely not running on fumes, but I don't like racing with a full stomach. So Nutri-Grain very different, but yeah, just learning along the way. That's like being a professional athlete. You need to be listening to everything that's going on, learning about new things, adapting on the fly. I've heard about pickle juice for years. And always thought it's just natural electrolytes, and then the Australian Open, they're smacking it. It's actually got this unique enzyme in it that hydrates you. It stimulates hydration. I forget the details of it.
And it also blocks some sort of protein or something that stops you from cramping. I was listening to what the commentators were saying.
Yeah. So there's actually, I remember hearing that years ago, but I never actually, So there you go, pickle juice. Yeah, have that on the beach, that's something I've learned the past few weeks is take on new things, adapt on the fly, and handy stuff.
All right. Well, I think that's been awesome today. So I think we'll kind of wrap it up there. Thanks so much for your time. Is there any final comments that you'd like to say, and is there anywhere that people can find you on Instagram or Facebook, or want to find out more about you?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. That was awesome. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at matt.bevilacqua if you want to get on board with the journey. But yeah, hopefully got out to the international sup world today. It's cool to chat with you, mate. And yeah, always love watching what you've been doing, and yeah, just love seeing your opportunities to race overseas and the growing that sup sport has had. You know, it's side by side with our sport, and it's yeah, I just really hope people start turning towards our sport, and it's just so cool. You know, it's awesome what we get to do out there in the ocean. So, cheers.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. No worries. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks for coming on. And just thanks to everybody out there who are listening and watching this on YouTube. If you are listening on any of the podcast channels, Spotify, Apple are the main ones. If you want to watch it, check out Booth TV on YouTube. This one was brought to you by Booth Training, and I hope to hear from you all going forward. Make sure if I write anything in my Michael Booth Instagram comments, just make sure you're asking who the next guest is and who you want to see, and asking any questions to those guys. So thanks so much for your time today, and thanks, Matt, again. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, guys.